Mr. Scott?
And I would have to say that I think that it depends on what in the third trimester. I guess I would consider that fetus is a child.
We go back to the phone. We go to South Hero next. Rob, good morning.
Hi, yes, good morning. I have a question on medical marijuana. Has this come up yet?
Not yet.
It has not come up yet with these candidates, no?
Okay, good. As Burlington goes, sometimes goes Vermont, they're considering legalizing marijuana for, I guess the advantage would be for taxation, for revenue raising. The question is, do you think this is a good avenue to go down for increasing revenue? And what might be the ramifications of such a law upon the youth of Vermont?
Okay, all right. We'll start with you, Ms. Gekas.
Well, I am certainly a supporter of regulated marijuana for medicinal purposes. I think there's some very strong arguments around decriminalization more generally. The things that resonate with me personally are, number one, at this point, you know, for young people that are caught with small amounts of marijuana, that prevents them from being able to apply for federal student loans later on. And I think that something like that is a really detrimental policy. You know, I don't think, like I think the governor said in his debate, I don't think we want to do anything to encourage young people to be smoking marijuana. It's still a drug. But the question is, how many resources do we want to put toward prosecuting those crimes when we have very serious problems with other drugs in the state? So I think when we look at the costs and the benefits of the amount of money that we're spending on law enforcement to prosecute people for carrying small amounts of marijuana, I think that's not money well spent given how much we have a problem with prescription drug abuse and harder drugs that are coming in and out of this state. So I would like to see the bulk of our law enforcement be used on that side. And so in that sense, I think there's some really strong arguments about decriminalization. And I also don't want to prevent young people who are getting their lives together, going to college, and need federal student aid from being able to access that aid if they made a mistake when they were younger.
I think there is a big difference between decriminalizing and making marijuana legal. And I would support a discussion on decriminalization. But I also feel that we need to be sensitive to what the conflicts we put our law enforcement in when we start making some federal exemptions that are when we're not following federal law. We put our law enforcement in a terrible position, and I think that that's something that we have to be extremely sensitive to. We also again, it's an entry-level drug, and I think that we certainly, as Cassandra had said and the governor has said, we don't want to encourage that because our youth, obviously, we have an incredible drug issue in the state of Vermont, across the nation, and we can't encourage that in any fashion.
Okay, I'm not clear here. So yes or no here, would you support decriminalization of marijuana today?
I would support the discussion and probably support decriminalization of some sort. Again, I would agree that a mistake you make in your youth shouldn't be carried forward in the future for school loans and so forth, and have it on your record. I know Senator Benning from Caledonia had initiated the discussion during the last session, and I thought he made a logical argument, and I think that we will probably not see the end of that argument in the future.
Okay. Can you just clear up for me yes or no on this decriminalization?
Yes, so at this point, based on the information that I have and the arguments that I've heard, I would be supportive of that discussion and that legislation.
Okay. I am going to actually ask you the question that I asked the Attorney General candidates last hour. If, assuming I have no criminal record, if I were caught breaking into a home in order to steal prescription drugs, would you send me to treatment or would you send me to jail?
So this is, you know, the criminal justice system and what we do to either hold offenders accountable for their actions or rehabilitate them is really important to me. And I've spent a lot of time in Burlington and in Barrie actually working with offenders with batterers and offenders of domestic violence. And I've seen what happens when you put people in jail, and I've also been a part of efforts to rehabilitate people. And I think that there's no easy answer across the board. I think when it comes to first crimes, when crimes are nonviolent, I think that we should do everything that we can to rehabilitate people and to make sure that we're taking care of the addiction. And I'm not convinced that putting somebody in jail in cases of addiction really makes anything better. But we do need to hold people accountable for their actions. So in this case, I would want more information over whether, was there a weapon used? Was there some sort of violence? How threatening was that? Does the person have a prior record? And I would lean on the side of rehabilitation and finding other ways, maybe through community work, community justice systems, to hold people accountable for their actions and make sure they understand the consequences of them, and try to keep people, out of jail if we can.
Well, first of all, you break into my house and you send them to jail. I think that's pretty simple. It's terribly offensive and personal. And then you determine whether they need treatment or not at that point. Not everyone that breaks into houses to steal Oxycontin and other drugs of choice are addicted. Some of them do it just to make money. And they're just bad people, and they should be sent to jail. But at the same time, if there is an addiction issue, then we as a society need to help in that regard. And we're not going to make things better until we keep treating and treat those that have that terrible infliction.
Let's go back to the phone. We go next to Montpelier. Mary, good morning. How are you today?
Good morning, Mark. It's Mary. I do work for pro-life issues, and I just wanted to, wanted to correct something Ms. Gekas said, and that is that abortion is in fact legal throughout pregnancy in Vermont with no restrictions of any kind, including that a physician perform the abortion. And I think I heard her say that abortion was only legal for viability. So that is something we've had confirmed by the Attorney General who you had on this morning, and maybe it might be wise to investigate further.
All right, thank you very much. Is there anything you want to add to what you said before on this?
It's a little tough for me to hear the question, but I think they're asking about viability.
Yeah, her point was that abortion is legal throughout an entire pregnancy.
So there's a couple things. One is there's variable state laws across the country as to how late in a pregnancy you can get an abortion. The other thing is just access to abortion. And there are some real limits in the state in terms of how late in a pregnancy you can even access an abortion without having to cross the state lines. So at this point, with the function of both the legal nature of our laws surrounding abortion and women's ability to access those abortions at service providers in this state, I am firm in believing that we are in the right spot, and I would not do anything to restrict that further.
Anything you want to add to what Mary's call was?
No, I think that's it.
We're broadcasting live this morning from the Tunbridge World's Fair. We've been talking with the Republican incumbent Lieutenant Governor Phil Scott and the Democratic progressive challenger Cassandra Gekas. And a reminder too that our friends at Northfield Savings Bank are making our broadcast coverage possible today. I want to ask a question that I asked also the Attorney General candidates. I spoke earlier this week with Laura Winterbottom's father. Laura Winterbottom was a murder victim in Burlington. And he told me that there are, every year at Fletcher Allen Healthcare, at least 130 cases of sexual assault that are investigated. What would each of you do as Lieutenant Governor to decrease the amount of violence against women in this state? Let me start with you, Ms. Gekas.
So violence against women, sexual assault, these are issues that I've spent a lot of time working on. It started for me when I was in college. I counseled victims of domestic